Have you ever considered how the hell someone is achieving 5, 2 or 4 million of manpower in the multiplayer game? Or maybe how the hell somebody is deving the promises for 4 or 5 power points? This video is going to answer such questions. So what I'm going to show you is the amount of the dev cost bonuses that you can achieve, how to use them, and why is it so overpowered on the current patch. Before we start, I have a giveaway for guys. All you have to do is to be a subscriber of this channel, leave a like on this video and comment what do you think of the dev cost meta and do you think if it should be nerfed by the paradox. Let's get to it. This whole thing is usually called the dev meta or the manpower dev meta. What the hell is it? It's meta that is being used in most of the top tier experienced multiplayer lobbies, and this is basically using all of these dev cost modifiers to build up your country and to get infinite amounts of the manpower without spending many power points. Just like in my Westphalia multiplayer, where even though I joined in 1540, I managed to get 2.2 million manpower with 86 provinces in 1700. Or just my latest Ruthenia campaign, where I achieved over 3 million of manpower in 1650. So before going to these all bonuses that you can get, how the hell the dev cost is working? So remember that the dev cost is increasing together with your dev in the province. Up to 9 dev you don't get any additional costs, but after reaching more than that, the dev cost is increasing 3% per each click. But also after every 10 development it's getting you plus 3% additional to its click, so above 20 you're paying 6% more per each click. And that's why you can see that in a lot of situations we are focusing to dev up to 10, up to 20 or up to 30. So to the even numbers, not only because it unlocks you the building slots, but also because it affects the dev cost in the province. But how to dev? I'll move to that later. First of all, the bonuses. Very early on you can get the dev costs from the terrain of the province, and in most of the cases you got increased dev costs from the terrain because most of the terrains are accusing that grasslands are getting you to 0, while for example farmlands are giving you the decrease of the dev costs. So when you're deving, that might be the first thing that you'll be looking around. What is the terrain that you're deving? You would prefer to dev grasslands, drylands or farmlands instead of mountains, hills or the jungle. Second thing that not that many players are aware of is the climate. There are 4 types of the climate in the game and 3 of them are increasing the dev costs. So you can see on this map that clearly Europe and Eastern Asia are the most overpowered regions considering the climate, because temperate climate is not affecting the dev cost while the others are surely doing that. Third thing that you don't have a big control of and you can get it right away are the trade goods. There are 2 trade goods, cloth and cotton, that are decreasing your dev costs by another 10%. So that's why, for example, Poland with all these farmlands and cloth, same for England, might be pretty powerful to develop in the very early game. Fourth thing are the national ideas. There are plenty of nations that are giving you 5 or even 10% bonus to that, like for example Florence. Fifth bonus is also pretty obvious one, it's capital province. You're getting 5% for each 100 development in your whole nation, and it scales up to 50%. Then we move to the religions. Most of the major religions are giving you 10% of the dev cost, for example the Orthodox from the icon, Muslims from the school, Shinto from isolationism, and it also has events for the additional dev cost. On top of that, Protestants from the church bonus, Catholics from the papacy, etc, etc. Most of the major religions are giving you the dev cost, and that's one of the reasons why all these religions are pretty overpowered for the multiplayer. Are you still there? Another one is the state edict. It's pretty obvious that you can just click it and get the 10% of the dev cost of the whole state while just paying a little bit more of the money for the state maintenance. You get additional 5% from the Renaissance for a brain ticket. You can get 10% reduction from the burghers on their merchant guilds, while they both influence and loyalty are over 60%, and it's pretty important to get a high cap of the loyalty of your burgers just to keep this dev cost bonus as long as possible. We are just getting started because there are more to come. You get additional 10% from the full prosperity, so you want to avoid situations where your country is getting sieged down and you're losing prosperity because it needs to be loaded to 100% to give you the dev cost. Then we also have trade centers. Level 2 trade centers giving you 5% dev cost in the provinces that center, while level 3 trade center, level 3 is so overpowered. It gives you minus 10% dev cost for the whole state. I'll be talking about that later, but you can just flip the different level 3 trade centers to dev cost your whole state for almost free. Then we move to the ideas. Economic ideas are giving you 20% dev cost, so you can here compare to the other 10%, it's an enormous amount, and together with crucial quantity idea, you get a policy for another 10% of the dev cost. You still there? Moving farther to the game, with the technology number 17, administrative, you are getting universities. Additional 20% dev costs. You get 10% power costs, up to 10% from your innovativeness, additional 10% power costs from the golden era. Yes, guys, we are still going. There are a few more to come. You also get the development efficiency, which affects the dev costs from the administrative technology, and a lot of other minor bonuses, like for example trading in the goods, government reforms, Cossacks privilege, government decree, parliament, HRE, and many others. So you can clearly see that there are so many options to stack your development costs. A lot of them were introduced recently or in a few years ago. So in my understanding, Paradox might not have considered that someone might get most of them together and dev your provinces for free. Now that we know what kind of dev cost bonuses we can stack and how the development cost in the province works, also remember the dev costs caps at 90%. But if we consider that we are deving the province and it is giving you additional dev costs for the development of the province, then yeah, you can stack more than 90% of the modifiers to decrease of your development cost. In total, to dev even 20 dev provinces for almost free. Now that we know that, how should we move to the deving process? There are a few rules around that. First rule is to dev the province only with all currently available for you dev cost modifiers for this province. Especially we should look for the edict, the prosperity, the estate bonus, of course the policy you have the ideas, and the many others depending on what kind of provinces you have and what is your situation, but those are the main ones that you should look for. Also, if you have money, then you should consider getting your trade centers to level 3 and deving whole states with that. If you don't have money, you can think about leaving these states with level 3 trade centers that you can boost later to dev it in some more years when you'll be having money for that, and in the meantime just dev the provinces that don't have the trade center anyway. Okay, now that we know this, what should we dev? So going from the most important, we have the manpower dev, we have production dev, and we have tax dev. So why is manpower dev the most important? The base province manpower per development is 250, but you can get so many modifiers, local and global ones, to the manpower that this number can be even 1 or even 2000 per one development in the province. So if you click your dev for 4 power points, you can calculate by yourself how cheap is to get so much manpower out of that. And how to get all those manpower modifiers, I'll talk about that in the next guide video that will be soon on the channel. Second dev is production. Why is it more important than tax? Your local production income is affected by production efficiency. Yes, it's increasing your production income in the province. But deving production is also increasing your goods produced in that province. And goods produced is further increased by goods produced modifiers that you have in general. Then, goods produced are affecting your trade value. And out of the trade value, you're getting trade income, which is also affected by trade efficiency. So you can clearly see here that the production dev is scaling like hell with a lot of other modifiers that you're getting through the game. Why tax? Well, let's not talk about tax, it's just tax efficiency, which is early game, okay, you get some bonuses to it, but through the game, it scales way worse than the manpower and production, and that's why we should aim to dev only with diplomatic and military points in our provinces. So now that we know what to dev, the question is up to how much development you should dev. You might think that you could dev everything to 10 to unlock the building slot and to chip without the minuses to the dev cost. That's one way, but personally I'm usually deving it to 21, because 21 is not only unlocking you 4 building slots that are giving you crucial buildings for the multiplayer, because remember, all this dev meta is the most important in the multiplayer, while in the single player it's cool to use some parts of it in any play, and it's really satisfying for the total gameplay in the single player. I'm personally deving it to 21, well 11 is the manpower development and 10 is tax plus production. Now why do I dev up to 21 and not just 20? Because I just said that I need to unlock the building, and you unlock the building on 20 development. So when you dev up to 20 and you focus on your mill points on the manpower to dev there, you're ending up with the dev 1, 9, 10. And with 1, 9, 10, you have option to click the manpower button one more time. So it will be 21 and you will focus on manpower, which scales the best and is most important thing over here. That's why you click it up to 21. The only reason basically. Next question you're probably having is, should I dev above 21? My answer is yes, but it depends, and it depends if you deved most of your provinces to 21 already, and those 21 development provinces are way cheaper to develop than the lower dev province, because the others are, for example, mountains, or they are on arid terrain. Then yes, you can definitely dev above 21, and with the same rule, you should go up to 31 to unlock another building slot in the province. But keep in mind, the dev cost between 20 and 30 is increasing twice faster than between 10 and 20. So the cost will be increasing very fast at this point. One of the major questions that I'm also getting in all of my streams is, should I exploit tax in the provinces? And this is a very complicated and a good question. You should rely on your judgment, because it depends. So first of all, as we are aiming at 21 development, we want to have tax and production combined at 10. Yes? So as mentioned, the perfect manpower would be 1, 9, 11. But it's of course many situations when AI is deving or just base development in the province is completely different. So if tax and production together have more than 10 in the province, then we should definitely start exploiting tax, because otherwise when we dev to 21, manpower will be not the dominating point as we would like it to. So this other developments, especially tax, is increasing our dev costs for the manpower. But what if production and tax are still lower than 10? Then you need to ask yourself a very important question. Do I have enough diplo points to dev all of my provinces together with military points? Because keep in mind, we through the game will be definitely focusing on the mill points mana generation, because we are deving mostly with the mill points. So if you are a small nation with not many provinces and you have great mana generations, like for example me in my Italy-Florence campaign, then yes, you can consider exploiting tax to just get production instead of it. But if you are a huge Rufinia with few hundred provinces, like also in my multiplayer, and you know that you will never have enough power points to dev everything, then you'd only focus on having up to 10 development in tax and production, and you rather don't exploit your tax. Another thing, if you want really to exploit tax, start doing that first of all in the provinces with the best trade goods, because there it will make the biggest difference. Just, you know, there's a lot of things here to consider, because every development is giving you 0.1 force limit, so if you know that you won't be able to develop the province, don't exploit tax, because it's still giving you some bonuses to money, not so much, but to the force limit, which is more important if it scales. One more thing, exploiting tax is mostly for the multiplayer, where you're really trying to build up your nation perfectly. While for the single player, I usually do not recommend to do that unless you are playing super tall. Final question that you probably might have because I was talking out of building slots. So what buildings are in general most important for strong country building, and I'm talking here especially for the multiplayer, but also a lot in the single player. So first of all, we need the manpower building. So for example, barracks. We need the force limit buildings, because if you have millions of manpower, we still need force limits to fill it, right? So we need regimental camps. Then we need a manufactory. And in vanilla it's rather easy to consider, because if the trade good is food, so it's wine, it's livestock, or it's grain, or fish, then we probably should consider building a soldier's households, because on such province we're getting double bonus to our manpower. But if it's something else, especially the high value trade good, then we are going surely for the normal manufactory. And while building normal manufacturing, we should also always consider if we control the trade value of the province that we want to build it in. Because if we can't, then we are losing a lot of value out of this manufacturing. Final thing is usually workshop, but workshop might be adjusted by another buildings, like for example building for the GAF capacity if you're really lacking it, or it might be adjusted by a fort if it's a good defensive province, but surely do not get the temples. Okay, temples might be okay in the very early game to build for early income, but later, in most of the cases, you need to replace them with better buildings from this list. The last thing that I would like to discuss here is how could we nerf this whole death meta, because clearly you can see that it's a little bit too overpowered. There are two ways to do that. First of all, we got way too many death cost modifiers over the years, so we should either exchange them for something else, or just increase the base province death cost, or increase the percentage of the death cost we're getting with each click. That's one way. On the other hand, we have the manpower itself, because the deving the production is really great, but it's not overpowered. It's okay in my opinion. While deving manpower, it's way too overpowered. So what could we do here is to nerf the base manpower in the provinces, or decrease the amount of the manpower modifiers that we can stack in the game. So guys, I think this is all. Initially I wanted to do the guide with both death cost meta and manpower meta, but then I realized how much content I will be getting to you. So it's only the death meta in this video, and in the next video I'll be sharing with you the whole manpower meta as well, which is practically a part of the death meta. So before we end guys, I have a giveaway for you. You can win a free EU4 DLC. All you have to do is to be a subscriber of this channel, leave a like on this video, and say in comments what do you think about the death meta and if it should be nerfed in the paradox. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you soon in the next guide.